Good morning, everyone. On this auspicious day, I'm delighted to welcome you all to our seventh lecture in the Legal Research Methodology series. So far, we have had a tremendous opportunities to know the nuances of legal research, and I hope today's session will be an addition to that. With immense gratitude, I welcome our esteemed resource person, Professor Dr. P. Vanagamudi sir, former Vice Chancellor, Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University. I also would like to express my gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Colonel Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar sir for his immense support and guidance. It's my pleasure to welcome and express my immense gratitude to our Registrar, Professor Dr. Gauri Ramesh ma'am, and our Dean, Professor Dr. V. Balaji sir, and special thanks to our PG Director, Professor Dr. Kumudaratna ma'am, and I extend a warm welcome to our Faculty Coordinator, Dr. Anbarasi ma'am, and all the faculties present here. Further, I welcome all the student coordinators, technical staff, and most importantly, all the students present here. Before moving on to today's session, let me give you a recap of the previous lecture briefly. In our previous lecture, Sir has explained about five major concepts, that is the definition of hypothesis, types of hypothesis, characteristics of hypothesis, variables on hypothesis, and measurability of variables. Further, Sir explains seven types of hypothesis, namely simple, complex, directional, non-directional, casual, null, and alternative hypothesis. Sir also discussed that good hypothesis must be clear and specific. Good morning, everyone. On this auspicious day, I'm delighted to welcome you all to our seventh lecture in the Legal Trilogy series. So far, we have had a tremendous opportunity to know the nuances of the legal research, and I hope today's session will be an addition to that. With immense gratitude, I welcome our esteemed resource person, Professor Dr. P. Vanagamudi sir, former Vice Chancellor, Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University. I also would like to express my gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Colonel Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar sir, for his immense support and guidance. It's my pleasure to welcome and express my immense gratitude to our Registrar, Professor Dr. Gauri Ramesh ma'am, and our Dean, Professor Dr. V. Balaji sir, and special thanks to our PG Director, Professor Dr. Kumudaratna ma'am. I extend my warm welcome to our Faculty Coordinator, Dr. Anbarasi ma'am, and especially a warm welcome to all the participants present here. Before moving on to today's session, let me give you a recap of the previous lecture briefly. In our previous lecture, Sir explained five major concepts: the definition of hypothesis, types of hypothesis, characteristics of hypothesis, hypothesis, and measurability of variables. Further, Sir explained seven types of hypothesis, namely simple, complex, directional, non-directional, associative, casual, null, and alternative hypothesis. Further, Sir also discussed that good hypothesis must be clear and specific, testable, falsifiable, grounded in theory, rational, and must have an empirical relevance and must be concise. Last session was really very informative, sir, and was filled with interactive questions from the students. And I hope for the same today. Without any further ado, I invite our honorable resource person to deliver the lecture. Over to you, sir.
Good morning to you all. It's my duty and happiness to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Colonel Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar, and all the organizers, including the directors and deans of the School of Excellence in Law and the Register of the Law University. And more particularly, I have to appreciate my gratitude and thanks to those students who are helping in preparing the slides and doing it in a wonderful manner. With this, let me pass on to the day's topic. I have to thank for the brief and good introduction given about the lectures. Today's lecture is on hypothesis and propositions. It is part 2 because it's almost a continuation of the previous one. At the outset, I emphasized earlier that hypothesis, SIS, is a singular, thesis is a plural, and another important concept is propositions. Most of the lawyers and law students, they are very much concerned with the propositions, but only law students, postgraduate and research students, are very particular about hypothesis. Therefore, in this context, the two concepts, the hypothesis and the propositions, are very important. In these two concepts, corresponding two more concepts involved. They are variable. If it is a hypothesis full of energy and spirit because of variables. Similarly, propositions are rich and resourceful because of the concepts. There are two concepts in two variables in hypothesis and two concepts in propositions. So without these concepts and propositions, hypothesis and propositions, they are not workable in nature. Therefore, this is the introduction. Therefore, in this present lecture, I have given 6 headings: difference between hypothesis and propositions, the difference between variables and concepts, the characteristics of conceptualization, characteristics of operationalization, methods of formulating hypotheses from propositions of law, and finally, necessity of hypothesis in empirical research in law. In fact, in the last session, I have given the slides, 2 slides, but for want of time and for obvious reasons, I skipped it. Today, I have incorporated in the last part of this deliberation, necessity of hypothesis in empirical research in law. So, totally there are 6 headings. And before going to heading-wise discussion, these 6 headings, they are centering around 2 important concepts. The first concept is hypothesis, second concept is proposition. Out of these 2 concepts, 2 important concepts are very important components: conceptualization, operationalizations involved. And the last one is how to, it's a very important one. And most of the students, they used to struggle in this one, how to formulate hypothesis or hypothesis from propositions of law. This is a very important one. And before taking heading-wise discussion, it's my duty to say a few things. 3 important things I would like to say. First one is I would like to give a proverb and the necessity to emphasize this proverb. The proverb goes this way: don't give a fish a day. Try to train how to fish. So research methodology is a training program. It's a very important training program whereby students of law, including postgraduates and master students, are given how to fish, a technical technique, how to fish. We are not teachers, we are not after post-graduation, we are not going to give a fish a day. We are training you how to fish. You have to yourself fish. This is the first proverb with reference to this one. But it's my pleasure having known this one and having been in this field for the past 50 years, nearly 50 years. I feel besides giving the training of giving a giving how to training of giving you how to fish, I want to give a tool, very important tool of fishing. There are two tools of fishing. One is by hook you can fish, and another by net you can fish. My professor used to give me an illustration. See, if you want to a particular type of fish, viral mean in our part of the country, viral mean is very important. It's a freshwater fish. This freshwater fish is available only in the river and lakes. Suppose if any person goes to the ocean to fish a viral mean, I couldn't catch the exact English version of this viral mean. So if you want to have this viral mean, you have to go to a freshwater lake or freshwater river or a freshwater water mass. If you go to the sea, you cannot get it. So you must, researcher must know where it is available, how it is to be caught. And this freshwater viral, you can hook, you can catch only by hook, not by this one. If no water is available, you can do it other way of netting. So today I want to give a very important technique or a tool through which all the law students can convert propositions into law. It's a million dollar question as far as legal research in India is concerned, how to convert a proposition into law. I have some expertise in this area. I want to tell my students, let it be a Diwali sweet to all the postgraduate and law students of the present day Diwali, how to convert a hypothetical proposition into law. Therefore, in this lecture, you have to carefully follow. I will also reduce my speed because I have given observer comment that I am little bit fast and I'm not followable. I'm not clear in certain area. So let me reduce my speed, and I also reduce dilute the style of telling things. Therefore, the next two concept I would like to emphasize here, the next point is, not slide, next point is, all along we have been dealing with three important words in research methodology. One is search, second one is the research, third one is systematic or scientific research. I point out in the previous lectures, search is an inherent characteristic of all living beings, whether it is plants or animals or human beings, their innate character is searching. So searching is an inherent characteristic of all living beings. But research is a peculiar added characteristics of human beings. Human beings alone, we used to search again and again. Whereas the third one is a systematic scientific research. If you say a search is by logic, right from Plato to Aristotle, logic based, inductive and deductive logic based is also research, no doubt. But scientific research commenced only after Renaissance, only after, say, 18th and 19th century, scientific research commenced. So scientific research, it is predominantly confined only to physical sciences like physics, chemistry, life sciences. But those characteristics of scientific research, they are borrowed. And in social science, including law and human sciences, humanities, we applied these scientific tools and we are trying to be a scientist. And in this context, we used to say it is a systematic research. So search is to all living beings, research is for human beings, and scientific research is for scientists and technologists, and systematic research is for social science and humanities students. Therefore, this is the development of this one. So, in this context, in what way the scientific research and social science research are different in the sense, in scientific research, we come across concepts and the concepts are converted into variables. Whereas in social science research, we had all along, I'm using the word we had all along had a concepts, and we are trying to convert these concepts into variables. This is our task. Therefore, this is. Let me proceed to another important development, evolutionary development. All the living beings, including birds and others, they have some type of communication. If there is a bird called a singing bird, and if you watch the singing bird, it says something, and reciprocally another bird from another area, it communicates. So communication in a primitive form, primordial form, it has been in existence in somewhat developed living beings. But language developed only in human beings. A systematic language developed in human beings. For the development of language, what is very important is concept. So, my understanding, and to a great extent, I feel it's correct. Concept, conceptualization, or the innovations of human beings. Human beings alone have the ability to conceive a particular idea. I am observing particular things. Human beings observe particular things. On the basis of the observation, if I am capable of converting such observations into a concept, that's a great thing. So, concept is the construct of the mind. Observations are deliberately elaborated and put into a particular word. So, concept is the construct of the mind. It is only in the mind level, it is in the idea level. So, ideas develop. So, human beings means besides this rationality, I think it's not out of place to say a very popular thing. And for students of law, it has three-dimensional uses. I'll explain one after another. The first one is we human beings are said to be six senses animal. It's a social animal, no doubt. It's a mammal, no doubt. But it has a human beings have six senses. What are the six senses? I'm not explaining in detail, but briefly let me point out because it's very useful for observational technique, observation and interview technique. So six senses, what are the six senses? This is the order. Most of the students, they may know we have six senses, but what are the six senses? Probably they may not know. But what is the order of the six senses? Probably they may not know. I feel to give it in the order. So Tolkappen clearly says the six senses. ஒன்றெனப்படுவது உற்றறிவதுவே, இரண்டெனப்படுவது அதனோடு நாவே நாக்கு, மூன்றெனப்படுவது அதனோடு மூக்கு, நான்கெனப்படுவது அதனோடு கண்ணே, ஐந்தெனப்படுவது அதனோடு செவியே, ஆறெனப்படுவது அதனோடு மனனே. So these are the six senses. So the six senses, the first sense is the feeling sense, உற்றறிவது. Second sense, it is நாக்கு, taste. Third sense is மூக்கு, மூன்று மூக்கு. Third sense மூக்கு. Fourth sense, it is eye. Fifth sense, it is ear. So hearing. So sixth sense, it is manane, consciousness. Therefore, all the six senses. Why I'm emphasizing this one? If you take evidence, all the five things are there. So you must come across. It is what's called perceptive. Perception, perceptive. Therefore, if you say empirical research, in the days to come, we will take in a elaborate manner about empirical sense. What are the source for empirical sense? The point is, any data, if you collected on the basis of the feeling, sensory feeling, somato feeling, or on the basis of taste, or on the basis of smell, or on the basis of hearing, or the last one, if you are capable of differentiating, all these things, they are called sensory perception. Therefore, our six senses, this is six. And before going to the slides, I feel today we are in a crossroad. My dear law students, research students, and doctoral students, you must be very careful that we are in a critical stage, very critical stage. What's the critical stage? We are in a transitory positions. The world is going very fast. What will happen after 25 years is very uncertain. So in this context, we must understand we are not only having six senses. With the six senses, we develop the seventh sense, as well as the eighth sense, ஏழாம் அறிவு, எட்டாம் அறிவு. So what is meant by this seventh sense? We can improve தொல்காப்பியம். ஏளனப்படுவது அதனோடு பொறியியல், technology. Man is a tool making animal. Man is a tool making and tool using animal. Hypothesis is a tool and variable observation is a tool. Tool making. Through tool making, we are developing science, we are developing and research. So, ஏழாம் அறிவு, seventh sense is, we can call it technology or பொறியியல் or science, we can say. The eighth one is, we are in that eighth sense era. எட்டனப்படுவது அதனோடு எண்ணே. Very interesting. Eighth sense, don't put me in trouble. Don't ask any question in this context. We will have a detailed discussion sometimes later. எட்டாவது, எட்டு, எண். எட்டனப்படுவது அதனோடு எண்ணே. So the word எண், number, and எண்ணம், எண், they are one and the same spelling. எண்ணமும் எண்ணும், எண்ணனப்படுவது கண்ணனத்தகுமே. So எண்ணியல். So the eighth sense is எண்ணியல். Why I'm very particular about this one? When you are trying to convert a proposition into a hypothesis, the basic thing is devise the tool, seventh sense, and using this seventh sense tool, technology, you have to quantify it, make it into a number. If you make it a number, then only you can able to test it, measure it. Therefore, these two things, the seventh one and eighth one. So I can proudly call my master students and research students, you are going to gain the seventh and the eighth senses. The seventh sense is a tool making sense, hypothesis, tool making tool technique. And the eighth one is how to compute the variables in the hypothesis, that is quantification. So in the artificial intelligence era, the seventh and eighth sense are there. Once if you're born as a human being, it is we are blessed with the six senses. But we are going advanced development or not, the sixth, seventh, and eighth sense are very important. Therefore, this is my observation. I feel my students may agree with me. If there is any query, we will explain it in the open question and answer session. And another point I would like to say here is artificial intelligence. Today, the big question, billion-dollar question is, in the days to come, whether artificial intelligence will have this consciousness. What do you mean by consciousness? What Tolhapia says, manane, manam. Manane is consciousness. Whether this artificial intelligence, the cyborg and other technological devices, will they have the consciousness in the future come? Yeah, big research is going on. You are going to witness in the days to come, in 1 or 2 decades, the artificial intelligence with the consciousness. These are the points that I would like to introduce in the prelude or as an introductory part of the discussion. So please proceed to the first heading, difference between a proposition and a hypothesis. We have already explained this one in the earlier deliberations. However, it is not out of place once again to sum up this one. How many times we can explain this one, that much it will give you clarity. So in hypothesis, there are 2 variables. What we call is independent variable IV and dependent variable DD. So these 2 variables are very important. With one hypothesis, can you have one variable? Can you have a hypothesis? No. Variable, two variables or 2 sets of variables. So the relationship between 2 variables, the independent and dependent variable, the cause and effect, that is what's called hypothesis. So in hypothesis, 2 variables ought to be there. If 2 variables are there, one can easily form a hypothesis. This is the first point. The second point is, in hypothetical propositions, there are 2 concepts. In hypothesis, 2 variables. But in hypothetical propositions, there are 2 concepts. I cannot call it as independent concept and dependent concept. There is no such concept as independent or dependent. There are two concepts, two sets of concepts. If these two sets of concepts are there and the relationship between these two sets of concepts are given, then that statement, hypothetical proposition, is nothing but a statement. If it is an affirmative statement, it's good. This is what is the meaning or the definition of the word hypothetical proposition, or you can simply call it as a proposition. Please, next slide. Yeah. So once again, now we are explaining this one. A hypothesis must be testable. It's a characteristics of a good hypothesis. It must be testable. What do you mean by testable? Testable means you have to put into examination. It says this one and that one, whether it is true or not, it is to be ascertained. That's what's called testable. How it is to be ascertained? It is to be measured. What's meant by measurable? You must exactly quantify and exactly say this is. If it is like that, then it is called hypothesis. Whereas in a proposition, it is just deals with only two concepts, and for which in a proposition there is no test is available. So as on date, the future is going very fast. And in the future, I'm not sure whether the artificial intelligence, if you give two sets of concepts or to a hypothetical proposition, the artificial intelligence will convert into a hypothesis and you will do all these things. In the future, it is possible, but as on date, there is no lab or there is no test to test two concepts. So a proposition is a tentative and conjectural relation between two constructs. What is a construct? A concept. A concept have few important or more than two important components. That components are called constructs. I'll take it elaborately because I want to give more illustration in law. So constructs here refers to components of a concept. In the previous class, I explained contract. It involves offer, acceptance, free consent, consideration, and there is no unlawful object or unlawful consideration. If it is there, then it is called as a contract. So if one or two concepts, elements are taken, and on the basis, if you develop then that concept can be converted into a variable. So here I am saying, I have given a slide in the subsequent part. Anyway, hypothesis has variables, a proposition has concept. So what is the relation between a hypothesis and a concept? All variables are concepts, but all concepts need not be variables. I explained it subsequently, but here you try to understand. It is possible. A concept can be converted into a variable is possible because we are in the technological world. It is possible to measure it. Therefore, the future research will convert all the concepts or most of the concepts into hypotheses. And you need not bother right now. Please move on to the next one. So a hypothesis is a set of variables. A proposition is a set of hypotheses. Then next concept is as the girl was briefly in a very impressive manner summarized the types of hypotheses, wherein we have pointed out null hypothesis and the testable hypothesis are the two important hypotheses in the previous discussion we enumerated. So null and void, it is nothing new to us. Null and void is empty. So null hypothesis is a statement which suggests that no significant statistical relationship exists in a set of given single observed variable. So I am here using a particular concept, what's called a statistical relationship, significant statistical relationship. In statistics, there is a concept called, there is a significant relationships, there is a significance, test of significance at 95% whether it is valid or 99% it is valid. I don't like to confuse right now, but the statistical significance is a concept which is available in statistics. They are pointing out whether this relationship is a reliable relationship or a spurious relationship. The spurious relationship I will explain later. So if the relationship is reliable and statistically if it goes good, then that relationship is called significant statistical relationship. So if two hypotheses, if they are not related, in a statistically significant manner, we call it a null hypothesis. So a null hypothesis stated in a negative manner. Please make it a point. All null hypothesis, it is conveying only a negative way, negative meaning. The testable hypothesis, on the opposite, it conveys a positive meaning. So testable hypothesis is affirmative, null hypothesis is negative, adverse. So these are the two importance. So all experimental hypotheses, all testable hypotheses, they give a positive relationship. What I mean by positive relationship, it says a particular relationship. It's an affirmative statement. If it is like that, it is a testable hypothesis or experimental. On the other side, if it says simply no, nothing, then it is what's called null hypothesis. This is about the difference between null hypothesis and a testable hypothesis. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. Here, my understanding, being a vice chancellor, I had an opportunity to incorporate in our 5 years course program a part called logic, inductive logic and deductive logic, and fallacies also in that. We have introduced that one because every lawyer, every law student must know the rudimentary principles of logic, whether it is inductive or deductive logic. So I think it's not out of place to say in the evolution of human beings, the first logic is it is inductive logic, observation. Human beings observe. He is observing, it is particular. From this observation, if it is coming, see, every day he sees in the morning, sun is coming. So he says, sun is every day, the sun is coming. He generalizes, he conceives a concept. So observation from observation, inductive, the further development is deductive. So Aristotle, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, they are known for this inductive and deductive logic. So it goes back. Logic, development, rationality, it started with logic. Therefore, in logic, and particularly in the categorical proposition, categorical deductive logic, four important statements are there. They have coined it as AEIO. What's the significance of AEIO? All vowels, AEIOU, these are the 5 vowels in English. They have used these 5 vowels, out of 5 vowels, 4 vowels to the categorical proposition. A proposition, E proposition, I proposition, and O proposition. And U proposition, there's no fifth one, therefore they ignored it. Therefore, AEIOU, this is the 4 types of categorical proposition. They call it universal affirmative, universal negative, particular affirmative, particular negative, 4 important things. My dear students, being a student of Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, which is known for its greatness, I think it's not out of place to say one important observation. And there are students of Law University is doing great social justice. It gives facilities for learning to almost all the students who are interested in law by providing all these facilities. And Tamil students, we have an opportunity to undergo law course in Tamil medium. So, my dear students, please make it a point. You come across these A, E, I, O, U vowels. What is a vowel? What refers to vowel? Vowel means weird. So in English, there are 5 vowels. In Tamil also, we come across 12 vowels. Literally, Tolkappiyar says the first 5 are very important. Second 5 is the evolved one, developed one. What is the 5? A, E, U, A, O. A, E, I, O, U, A, E, U, A, O. They are one and the same. There's no difference between. If you doubt me, let me tell you. The first poem of Tolkappiyam and the third poem of Tolkappiyam, it goes this way. எழுத்தனப்படுவ அகர முதல் நகரம் இருவாய் 30 என்ப சார்ந்து வரல் மரபின் மூன்றலம் கடையே. Second one. அவைதாம் ஆ இ உ எனும் குற்றியலுகரம். 5 letters, 5 vowels, that is a, e, u, a, o. 5 vowels. Some of the students, you are murmuring, I could listen that one. But in Tamil, 12 vowels. Yeah, no doubt. So, the remaining 7 vowels, they are nedil. Kutriyalugaram, one nodi. Nedil, 2. So what about the I and OU? Tolkappiyar clearly says, it's a very interesting to note, in Tolkappiyar you may come across A, A and E. It refers to I. The combination of A, E, I, Akara Ikaram, Aikaram Mahum. A, U, OU, Akara Ukaram, Aukaram Mahum. Therefore, it is the combination A, E combines together, it's called I. It combined together, it's called out. So I'm not telling anything. In English also, students, you might have come across the diphthong. What do you mean by diphthong? If two vowels, A, E, I, O, U, if they come together one after another, they are called as diphthong in vowels. And very interesting to note, in any English word, there cannot be a word without a vowel. உயிரில்லாமல் ஒரு சொல் வராது. That's why Tolkappiyam says உயிரெழுத்து, மெய்யெழுத்து, உயிர்மெய் எழுத்து. This is, language is a living entity, they are saying. Therefore, all these things they are conveying. If it is not out of place, if my students you are following, let me tell you another important thing. All the students you may come across, you must use vowels before, you must use A and D. Where you are using an in English, before all the vowels, you are using an. So if you come across A, E, I, O, U, you are using vowels and the T and A, it's for the consonant. Now, most of the students, even though we are in Tamil Nadu, we are familiar with Tamil, you may not come across where you have to use or ஆசிரியர். We used to say ஒரு ஆசிரியர். No, that's not right. Grammatically, it's not right. Or ஆசிரியர், or amma, or appa, or annan. Because after this vowel, a word comes, that word is to be called as in or. Similarly, ru, that way. So all the vowels must be preceded by an. It is the contribution of Tamil from English. The point I am trying to say, if you are good in English, Tamil, you will automatically good in English. There is a very close nexus between these two languages. I don't like to go beyond that one. It's not my duty, but if you go deep in research, you will come across. Therefore, my point is, in categorical proposition, A, E, I, O, or proposition, they are called as universal affirmative, universal negative, particular affirmative, particular negative. In propositions, to arrive at a conclusion, it is required to have two premises. All these things you probably might have come across. With that understanding, I will just highlight and proceed to that one. So in every proposition, there are two premises. One is called a major premise. What's called a major premise? Major premise is the statement, affirmative statement, where the major term comes. Minor premise is that affirmative statement where the minor premise is coming. Therefore, major premise and minor premise, two premises, and major term, minor term, two terms. Therefore, in a proposition, logical proposition, there ought to be two premises, there ought to be two terms. Otherwise, these propositions may not be correct. So please move on to the next slide. Yeah. So logical conclusion can be arrived by following the logical rules. There are so many logical rules. Without following the logical rules, if any conclusion is arrived at, that conclusion will not be valid. And there may be fallacies. Fallacy, a lot of fallacies are there. Let me tell you one important fallacy. Fallacy of four terms. In the logic, if you have four terms instead of three terms, and then major term, a minor term, and the middle term, if you have the fourth term, it's a fallacy. So there are so many fallacies. What I'm trying to say, for every advocate and every students of law, and more particularly research students, logical conclusion on the basis of methods, you can have it only by following logical rules and without committing any fallacies. Therefore, the major and minor terms are concepts. This is a vital point in research. When you come across a proposition, when you come across a premise, the major term is a concept. Minor term is a concept. The relation between major term and minor term, it is a relationship. So, hypothetical relationship consists of two concepts and they are connecting it. It's what's called relationship. Therefore, the difference between hypothesis to variables and it deals with a relationship. The proposition, two concepts, and it is connected by a relationship. It's called the proposition. Please move on to the next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. So next one. Yeah. Difference between variable and concepts. Yeah. There are differences between variables and concepts. Variables are measurable, simple. If you don't know any other thing or not, you keep in mind, variables are measurable. Concepts are just definable. Concepts are only constructs. What do you mean by constructs? It is in the mind. It is in the form of the idea, construct of the mind. Concepts are only definable and describable, whereas variables are concepts which can be measured, tested, and quantifiable. Therefore, every hypothesis it is consisting of two concepts, and the concepts are measurable. Yeah, measurable. It is testable. Variables are concrete and are measurable. Concepts are abstracts and are not measurable. So the important point, important yardstick that deal with this one is measurability and quantifiability. Yes, please, next slide. This is the point I explained earlier. Once again, like all agreements are contract, all contracts are agreements, but all agreements need not be contract like that. All variables are concepts, but all concepts need not be variables. So you may have a confusion. What this person is going on telling there are differences between concepts and variables. Here, once again, he is saying all variables are concepts, but all concepts need not be variables. Yes, my dear students, concepts are construct of the mind. But this construct of the mind, by our ability, by our intelligence, we can measure it, we can quantify it. And that is very important. If you are capable of converting a concept into a variable, and the technique is operationalization. So operationalization is the tool that I want to give it to you, train you how to use that tool, and that is what's called operationalization. So concepts may be converted into variables by the researcher when the researcher operationalizes the concept for the purpose of his research. So this is a very important one. We may come across this one. So next slide, please. Next slide. Concepts in scientific research are the abstract ideas or phenomena. They are being studied. Variables are properties or characteristics of the concept. So Fred and Kerlinger clearly defined what's the concept. Concept means construct of the idea. construct of the mind. In the mind, when you say, for instance, when I say a tree, in our mind it comes, tree is a living entity. It has branches, it has green leaves, it has roots, it gives oxygen, it undergoes the process of photosynthesis. Some of the trees are giving fruits, all these things. It's a construct, it's a mind. So the idea of a tree, our mind, it presumes or it conceives a particular importance. There are so many constructs in that one. So concepts in scientific research are the abstract ideas or phenomena that are being studied. Variables are properties or characteristics of the concept. Concepts may be associated with the theories, whereas variables are related to observation and measurement. Variables are empirical indicators of such concepts. Therefore, my dear students, the difference between concept and variable is when a concept is converted into an operational form and into a measurable form, into a qualitative form, then it is what's called a variable. So please move on to the next slide. Yeah. See, these two slides, even though it's a repetition, I feel it's necessary because the clarity you can have it. Concepts are highly subjective. So it is a mental construct. All the mental constructs are subjective. That is what's called subjectivity. Subjectivity is that one. In English also we use the word subject, object, predicate. Subject means the person. Whatever the person feels, whatever the person thinks, the same thing, even though he communicates to other person, the feeling of that person is only a subjective. It cannot exactly be communicated. சில விஷயங்களே வந்து என்ன சொன்னாலும் அது அவன் சொல்றது மாதிரி இருக்காது. So subjectivity and objectivity. So concepts are highly subjective. It's a mental constructs or images that cannot be directly measured, while variables can be observed by senses and measured on statistical scales. So these are a very important explanation to that one. So next one is a concept expresses an abstraction. I'm using the word abstraction. It is a very ambiguous one, very vague one, formed from observation. Whereas a variable is operationally defined one that can be measured for the purpose of research. My dear students, please take it from me. When you come across operationalization or operational definition, you come across this operationalization or operational definition exclusively for the purpose of your research. Suppose some other person comes, if he wants to operationally define that concept, he can define in a different manner. He can either follow your operational definition or he can reject it and he can define it in a different manner. But when you take concepts are subjective, broad, abstract. It may convey a single meaning, simple meaning. Whereas the operational definition, it varies from researcher to researcher. It varies. So a variable represents one or more properties of the concept and takes on different values and they are assigned in numbers. So whenever you are giving a number, quantification or some unit of numbers, then it is called a variable. So anything you can convert into variable, it is possible. What is required is the ingenuity, intelligence, smartness of the researcher is required to convert that one into any other thing. So these, please move on to the next slide. Now, characteristics of the concept, characterization of characteristics of conceptualization. We have been defining concept is the construct of the mind. We have been using the word concept. Conceptualization. I think it may be relevant, and it's not out of place to say. Already we find out. When you say you are a human, the human being or humanity is different from all other animals. Elephant, it is several times bigger than a human being. a line which is more powerful, more mighty than a human being. But it is a human being. He is capable of controlling this elephant and the lion and other animals. It is the significance is the sixth sense, no doubt. The sixth sense, that is manam, rationality, that facilitates the human beings to conceive concepts. Only on the basis the concept religion comes into. Only on the basis the concept of self or Atma comes into. Only on the concept of several philosophy like Advaita, Dvaita, Visishta, Advaita, all these concepts are coming into force. So conceptualization, concept is important. From the concept, one person to another person, one researcher to another researcher, one aspect to another aspect, that definition of that concept varies. It is permissible. That is what's called conceptualization. Now let me pass on to the legal definition of the word. Please move on to the back previous slide. Yeah. Here I am pointing out, it's a very interesting, very important, you must note. If you take any particular law, I am on the habit, and I advise my students to go through that. If you take any particular act or any particular code, you must concentrate predominantly at the outset. You have to concentrate on a particular portion called definition portion. In certain acts, it is called a definition. In some other acts, it is called as explanation. In some other acts, it is called meaning. Whether it is definition or explanation or meaning, that is the heart of that particular act. How a particular word is used in this particular act. Therefore, in a code or in an act of law, there is a part or section called the definition part or section, wherein most important terms of the said code, act are defined for the purpose of the code, that purpose of the code or act. If any word is not defined, then the rules of IOS are to be followed. I understand Professor Balaji, the director, the dean, he is an expertise in IOS, interpretation of statutes. I had an opportunity to assign this paper to him. So in interpretation of statutes, there are certain rules. If no word is there, how to take a particular meaning of that word. So you may come across, I don't like to delve into it. So next one is, in the definition part of the act, there are three types of definition which are found. Now I am gradually entering into the operationalization portion of the concept. There are three important types. I'm using the word types. When I say concept is a construct, some of the concepts are simply defining. There is no exclusion, there is no inclusion. Simply it gives a meaning. Contract is the agreement enforceable in the court of law. So contract is an agreement, except all these things. If you define, simply define, then it's what's called meaning. There are certain concepts which are used apart from the meaning, inclusive definition. This includes, this concept includes this. This is what's called inclusive definition. And there is another concept called exclusive definition. So in this act or in this code, for the purpose of this act or the purpose of this code, this concept does not include. Therefore, it is what's called conceptualization, or it's what's called operational definition of the concept. Therefore, my dear students, you have to carefully go through this one. That's very important. So human beings, we are expertise in developing the concept. So my understanding, every day, hundreds and hundreds of the concepts are coming into force. The language is very useful. Why human beings advanced so rapidly, so radically, so fast? Because he communicates everything only through language. 2,500 years back, Tolkappiyam, today I'm using it. How it is possible? The language through concepts communicates. 2005 years previous mind comes to me, through me I am telling something. it is communication, it is conveying this idea. That's why human beings, we are not only inheriting the genes, we are inheriting the previous accumulated knowledge through the language. The language, what's a language? Language is vital, language is lively because of the concepts. Without concepts, can you imagine any language? Without concepts, there is no need for any language. So this for human beings, this is very important. So characterization of conceptualization is how you are defining a particular concept. That's very important. Please move on to the next one. I have given four important illustration in this context. It's for your understanding, and I have deliberately taken these four illustrations to suit all the students of law, not only any particular branch of law. In Article 12 of the Constitution, if you come across, this definition is there in this part, unless the context otherwise requires. They are carefully using it. Unless the context otherwise requires, the state. I am a student of political science also. I come across Bodin's definition of a state. State is a definite territory occupied by people who have a common territory of their own, which is sovereign and independent. So any territory which is sovereign, any territory which is independent, which is occupied by people, I used to say it is a state. But in Article 12, that is not state. The operational definition of the state is it includes inclusive definition. It includes the government and the parliament of India, and the government and the legislature of each of the states, and the local authorities, other authorities within the territory of India are under the control of the under the control of the territory of India. So this is the definition given to the concept state. So state refers to the operational definition. Operational definition of state, it is an inclusive definition. I need not enter into it because in examination point of view, without this Article 12, there may not be any constitutional law question. So most of the students, you are familiar with it. I need not enter into explain beyond that. Please move on to the next one. Next one, I have taken Article 13. For a practicing lawyer, as well as for a student of law, Article 13 is important. In this article, unless the context otherwise requires, law includes inclusive definition. Any ordinance, order, bylaw, rule, regulation, notification, custom, or usage having in the territory of India the force of law. If we go through Article 13 in the sub-article 4, there is an exclusive definition. It was introduced by way of amendment subsequently. Nothing in this article shall apply to any amendment of this constitution made under law, Article 368. I used to raise a sarcastic question, whether constitution is a law. Constitution is not a law for the purpose of Article 13. If anybody says constitutional law, yes, it's right. But constitution, as per Article 12, whether it's a law or not for the purpose of Article 13, it is not a law because it is excluded from the purview of the definition of law under this article. So this is what is called inclusive definition and exclusive definition. Please move on to the next one. Next slide, please. Yeah. Meaning and the inclusive definition. Here, I have deliberately taken the word fact and evidence because these facts and evidences are relevant not only for practice, not only in civil law, not only for criminal law, in all laws, facts and evidence are there. It is very useful for a practicing lawyers. It's very useful for a researcher. So without facts, there cannot be any research. So I have deliberately taken, and I am using this one to mean how operationalization is used with the meaning as well as inclusive definition. Here you have to carefully watch this fact. Fact means and includes. It means and includes anything, state of things. Anything, it is a physical phenomenon, any object, state of things. In what position it is there. It is what's called phenomenology, phenomenal object. So object. I said earlier, the Cartesian dualism, it is on the basis of matter-mind relation. All these things are matter related and mind related. So Cartesian principle of dualism, mind matter, it involves in this definition of fact. Anything, state of things, or relation of things capable of being perceived, perceptive knowledge, cognitive perception, capable of being perceived by the senses. How many senses do we have? We have five senses, not six senses. Five senses, sixth sense is the rationality. So manam. So with the five senses, if you observe, then that is what's called fact. Any mental condition of which any person is conscious. So one of my friend who is a senior counsel in the Supreme Court of India, he has pointed out, sir, I am very much interested in the word conscious in Evidence Act. I'm doing a research in consciousness in the Evidence Act. So in the world of neuroscientists and philosophers, they are trying to have a clear definition about consciousness. But in law, how can we use it? Okay, the development is going on. The future artificial intelligence, they are going to materialize this word consciousness in a section in this Evidence Act, and we are going to have a detailed discussion in the years to come. So any mental condition of which any person is conscious, it is a fact. It is meaning and inclusive definition. The next one is, it is inclusive as well as extended meaning. The court, the act, it delegates its power. What is an evidence? All statements which the court permits are required to be made before it by witnesses in relation to matters of fact under inquiry. Such statements are called oral evidences. Here, the court is given a wide discretion to admit certain statements. If the court is of the opinion it can be allowed, then that statement is called as an evidence. So all documents produced for the inspection of the court, such documents are called documentary evidence. Originally, this documentary evidence. Now, digital evidences are also included. So I have pointed out inclusive evidence, exclusive evidence, and extended evidence, mean all these things. Therefore, in law, every act, have you come across any act without a concept? Every act has a concept, every code has a concept. It is the duty of the researcher how to color that concept, how to convert this concept into an operational variable, operational hypothesis is very important. This is what I mean by the word operationalization. Please move on to the next one. Yeah. Now, the very important portion, methods of formulating hypotheses from propositions of law. So in the earlier slide, we have explained four important statements. From the four important statements, how it can be converted into the operationalization of a concept or operationalization of variables. So correct the methods of formulating hypothesis from proposition of law. A researcher, by applying her critical mind for the purpose of her research, can convert convert proposition into hypothesis by way of operationalization. The researcher has to carefully draft her research questions, data collection techniques, and data analyzing techniques, and must state them in the research design. I understand now my students somewhat understood the research design concept. When you draft a research design, after the research questions, you must clearly state if it is hypothesis required, you have to state the hypothesis. If hypothesis is not possible, then you have to state propositions or objectives. Then after that, data collection techniques, and then you have to use data analyzing techniques. So data collection technique, data analyzing technique, all these things are very important. You must state in a research design. So these are all important. It is possible to convert a proposition into a hypothesis. How it can be converted into a hypothesis. Next slides, they are explaining it. You must carefully watch. You must be very sharp. You must be smart. I have given illustration. These are these are logical illustration, but selection of illustration from law is my choice. So universal affirmative proposition. Example in logic. Most of the students you might have come across. All apples are fruits. It's a major premise. Pink apple is an apple. It's a minor premise. Therefore, pink apple is a fruit. How a particular conclusion one can come based on universal affirmative proposition. So this is the point there whereby you can come across conclusion. So universal from universal affirmative statement, major premise, minor premise, conclusion can be. So in this concept, in this premise, there are three important concepts. What are the concepts? Apples, fruits, pink apple. It is the duty of the scientific researcher or systematic researcher to define all these one. Otherwise, it will be misleading. It will not be possible. Please move on to the next one. Yeah. In law, I am giving this illustration. All contracts are agreements. It's a major premise. Arbitration agreement is a contract. It's a minor premise. Arbitration agreement is an agreement. It's a conclusion. So all agreements, all contracts are agreements. Arbitration agreement is a contract. So arbitration agreement is an agreement. Conclusion. What are the concepts involved? Contract, agreement, arbitration agreement. My dear students, you may have a doubt. Sir, in law, I come across contract is an agreement provided if it is supported by consideration entered by competent parties with a lawful object, lawful consideration, and without a violation of any law, then only it is said to be a contract. Okay, right. Why here arbitration agreement in the first point, it is all contracts are agreements, arbitration agreement is a contract. Please, you have to carefully watch. When they draft a legislation, they apply their mind. There is a very important department of the central government and the state government called law department. Before enacting a particular law, it's not simply made by the legislators. They enter into the drafting committee. They look into it. Arbitration agreements in the globalized world, it is not confined to India. In France, my understanding, a minor is a person who has not completed 15 years of age. But in India, even today, it is 18 years. If it's a minority in guardianship, after attaining majority, it is there. Therefore, similarly, in the world, the concept of contract, it is defined differently. Operationally, it is defined differently. Therefore, we are not sure whether a particular terms is there or not. Therefore, they are broadly using the word agreements. So arbitration agreement is an agreement. This agreement is a contract. It's right. Therefore, it's not necessary, but I am pointing out for your for understanding. Please move on to the next one. Yeah. Now from this one, how can you translate or convert into a testable hypothesis? I have used this one. It's only for illustration I'm using it. Students can similarly draft a hypothesis from these things. There is a steady increase in the number of arbitration agreements during the era of globalization. The era of globalization commenced in India from 1991 onwards. And from 1991 till 2024, we can confine it's what's called delimitation. We have delimited our area to 2020. From 91 to 2020, a period of 30 years. During the period of 30 years, I observed that there is a steady increase in the arbitration agreement in India. So I am converting into a hypothesis. What are the variables? Arbitration agreement, number of registered, see how we are using a concept into an operational definition of a concept. Number of registered arbitration agreements in India. In India, during the 30 years period, how many agreements are registered in the name of arbitration? You have to list out. It's possible to measure it. It's possible to list out it. Then you have to put in the 30 years period, 91 to 2001, 2001 to 2021, 2021 to 2000, 91 to 2000, 2000, 2001 to 2010, 2010 to 2020, 3 decades. You can reduce it into data, and you can simply give a graph picture, graphical representation. It's a very good, it's a trend analysis, what's called a trend analysis. Some of the students are murmuring, I could read your mind voice. Suppose if the numbers are going down, what would happen? No worries. I have tested the hypothesis. The hypothesis findings are different. It's not steadily increasing. After a particular period of time, it stands static. There is no increase, no decrease. You can say the researcher purpose is not to prove the hypothesis. You can simply say if there is a fact, you are going to say it's a fact. If it is not a fact, you are simply going to say it's not a fact. It is the other way. It is interpretation. Therefore, in this hypothesis, in the quantifiable hypothesis, 3 variables are there. Number of registered arbitration agreements in India, steady increase of agreements, that is the registered arbitration agreements during that period, and the era of globalization. You have to operationally define the period era of globalization from 91 to 2020. In the world, the era of globalization started earlier. I used to say Tamil Nadu and India, it was in the era of globalization in the pre-Christian era. We had trade relations throughout the world. We had everything that we have to operationally define. So the era of globalization refers to the period 91 to 2020. This way, if you operate, it becomes a hypothesis. Please move on to the next slide. Again, it is a relativity hypothesis. Second hypothesis for illustration, there is an association between nature of companies and the seeds for dispute settlements in arbitration agreements during the era of globalization. Second hypothesis I have decided. Some of the students raised earlier, sir, can we have 5 hypotheses or 6 hypotheses? Not necessary. You can take 1 or 2 hypotheses. You can have 2 or more sub-hypotheses. I have taken first hypothesis. The same thing is the second one. You need not bother about it. You can convert these 2 hypotheses into half a dozen sub-hypotheses. So there is an association. Why I am using the word association? It is the technique based, chi-square technique based. Why I use the word trend? It is because it is correlated, a trend analysis. So when you conceive a concept into hypothesis, proposition to hypothesis, you have to keep in mind what type of data collection can be used, what type of technique of analysis can be used. So there is an association between nature of companies. Here, the company, nature of the companies, there ought to be 2 or more non-MNCs. Non-MNCs, multinational companies, non-multinational companies, that means Indian companies. And MNCs, multinational companies, registered in India or otherwise. Multinational companies, it may be registered in India, or multinational companies, it may be registered in abroad. So these 2 categories of companies. And the seeds for dispute settlements in the arbitration agreements, there ought to be a particular section or a clause which must say in case of dispute, how to resolve the disputes, arbitration agreement, how to resolve the settlement. It must be categorically stated. And if it is like that, what is the seat or which is the seat of the settlement? Whether it is Indian city or a foreign cities during the era of globalization. Because I have come across, I was given an offer, will you come and talk on on arbitration about arbitration agreement in Singapore? I declined in that period. I didn't go. That's why I'm trying to say Singapore in Asia. Singapore happens to be a very important center seat for arbitration settlement. So there is an understanding, there is an observation, there is a belief. The belief is if there is a seat in India arbitration agreement, it may not be the validity and reliability they suspected. The international arena, still we are considered as a backward country. We are saying we are a developing country, but they are considering it's still a backward country. So for developed countries, if there is a seat, they may not be influenced in the arbitration. That way they are thinking. Therefore, if any multinational companies or Indian companies, whether they have a seat in abroad or not, if you take it, you can test it by chi-square technique. Therefore, there is an association between nature of companies and the seats for dispute or settlements in arbitration agreements during the era of globalization. I referred it in our arbitration agreement. The seats, in a very popular case, the Supreme Court decides for companies, even for national companies, Indian national companies, they can have a seat of settlement in abroad, foreign countries. Then only I come to this drafting of this hypothesis. Therefore, simply it cannot take it. My dear students, don't presume that, sir, very simple point. So what? You are empirically testing it, you are coming to a conclusion, and you are going to predict. Prediction is very important. Without prediction, our research is not that much useful. Research aims at prediction, generalization, objectivity, generalization, prediction. You can be able to predict. If it is a multinational company or Indian company, they are thinking that having a seat in abroad it would be reliable. That way you can say. I'm not saying the result may say. Please move on to the next one. So with this, we have deduced two hypotheses. Now, in the fourth slide, we have pointed out universal the propositions. What are the four important propositions? Universal affirmative, universal negative, particular affirmative, particular negative. So, universal negative proposition, universal affirmative proposition. Can you go back to the previous slide? Yeah, yeah. Right. You please move on to the next slide. So, particular universal negative, right? I was thinking about particular. So no parrots or cats. It's an illustration I have given. No parrots or cats. It is a universal negative proposition. Example from law. The very popular illustration is a general exception, very popular general exception. Nothing is an offense which is done by a person who is I'd like to you explain a small explanation. It's not out of place. Three dots we are using. In some of the texts, you may come across four dots. When you come across three dots, the two within quotation, it refers to some words are omitted, edited. But edited words do not exceed a sentence. If more than a sentence, if you edit, you have to use the fourth dot. It is the research methodology, very important. So three dot means less than a sentence words edited. Four dots means more than a sentence is edited. Therefore, I carefully use three dots. It is within quotation. It is a general exception to the penal laws. Nothing is an offense which is done by a person who is bound by law to do it. It's a null hypothesis. Can you test, can you take a null hypothesis? Yes, you can take a null hypothesis. In research methodology, I have pointed out hypothesis. It's a testable hypothesis and a null hypothesis. You can convert this one into null hypothesis. Why I'm saying, if you go through the exact version of this proposition, it is pointed out with mistake of fact. Nothing is an offense which is done by a person who is bound by law to do it without mistake of fact and not by mistake of law. If by mistake of law, if he commits, it is the exemption. But if it is a mistake of fact, if he commits, it is not. Therefore, if you test a null hypothesis, then the null hypothesis will be accepted. So you can come. Nothing is an offense which is done by a person who is bound by a law to do it. Suppose if a police officer, without following the procedure, if he shoots on a person without obtaining from a district police officer who is a executive magistrate, or without following the rules, if you follow that one, then it is called. Please go. I'm sorry. My grandson is here. So nothing is an offense which is done by a person who is bound by law to do a. If a police officer, if he shoots a person without following the procedure and without following any other thing, it's an offense. That way, the null hypothesis can also be accepted. It's a part and parcel. It is a duty of a researcher to conceive a particular thing in that manner. Okay, when time comes, we'll take it in a detailed manner. Please move on to the next one. I have given the exact statement. Nothing is an offense which is done by a person who is or who by reason of mistake of fact and not by reason of mistake of law. In good faith, believes himself to be bound by law to do it. So null hypothesis, it is formed. It can be tested and you can proceed in this manner. So testable hypothesis can be formed with the help of this proposition. Null hypothesis can also be formed with the propositions. These are the points that I would like to highlight. Please move on to the next one. Yeah. There are two other propositions, particular affirmative and particular negative. Particular affirmative, example in logic, some students are intelligent. Particular negative, example in logic, some students are not girls. From I and O propositions, no valid hypothesis can be formulated because of uncertainty and ambiguity. In these two statements, particular affirmative and particular negative, as they are ambiguous, as they are uncertain, a valid hypothesis cannot be formed. However, if a student is very intelligent, if a researcher is very intelligent, has the innate ability, smartness, intelligence, he can classify and by careful operationalization, he can do a research even in this proposition, particular affirmative and particular negative. In this context, I am using the word intelligence. Yes, please move on to the next one. I am using the word intelligent. I think it is not out of place to explain the word intelligence. There is a very popular philosopher and very popular neuroscientist. They are using this concept, intelligence. What is intelligence? Because intelligence is to be explained. Intelligence, it is defined by William James to mean intelligence is a fixed goal with variable means of achieving it. In order to achieve a goal, if any person follows a different, distinct, innovative way or a method and achieve it, it is intelligence. So intelligence means it's an ability. It's a capacity of a human being. In order to achieve a goal, he innovatively, distinctly follows a different method. I think I can give an illustration and whereby you can understand the concept. By giving illustration, at times it may confuse you, but here I am deliberately giving this illustration to help my students how to cope up with the competitive examinations. Facing the competitive examination, it is not only knowledge based, it is smartness based, it is intelligence based. So knowledge based, intelligence based, smartness based, it's very important. I will give an illustration. Suppose I am measuring intelligence on the basis of this one. So my dear students, in my 40 years of teaching and research experience, I come across every subject of law. How many concepts? Probably you may understand concepts. I am using the word. Students may understand 50 concepts in a subject. Probably mean. I am using the word mean. Average 50 concepts in a subject. Suppose if there are, say, all the subjects put together, clubbing together, if it comes 500 or 1,000 concepts, let it be. If 1,000 concepts, if you come across 20 subjects into 50,000. Therefore, If you know the concepts 500 to 1000, that's all. You have the linguistic ability, you have the knowledge ability. If you know the concepts in depth, you can clear the examination. So every intelligent student or all intelligent students, what they do first, they used to understand the concepts. There are hardworking students who are not intelligent. But the smartness of the student is the moment when he takes a book, what are the very important concepts in this act? He understands, and he proceeds after understanding that one. Now let me give a small quantifiable technique of how to measure this one. Suppose I want to understand the, I am given to understand there are nearly 500 students. Let us take 500 students in the master's level. I want to understand the students' knowledge or intelligence about law. Now, I want to study them. I want to measure them. How can I measure them? I have given 500 questions. 500 questions. With the 500 questions, I want to assess them. All the questions are conceptual questions. With these 500 questions, the moment some of the students, when they see, they used to skip it. Oh, it's very difficult. I'm going up. There are students who use all the 3 hours and they used to answer. But if you understand that student, he might not have studied it deeply in the classroom or at home, but he is very intelligent, he's smart. So intelligent students are those students who follow a distinct method. If I were in that condition, I used to train civil service students and others. I used to give illustration this one. Whenever you come across no negative marks, my first rule says don't omit any question. If there is no negative marks, you have to answer all the questions. Because for a long time, I have been a teacher for civil service students and group 1 and competitive examination like civil judge and APP. In this illustration, I used to say when there is no negative marks, all the questions are to be answered. If there are 500 questions, a student who is not that much shrewd, that much knowledgeable, but he is intelligent, very smart, he answers. See, he knows only 125 right answers out of, let us take 150. 150 right answers out of 400, out of 500. Then he has the knack of eliminating 2 wrong answers in the remaining questions and select one of the 2 probable right answers into one. So out of the remaining questions, he selected out of 50 questions, he secured a mark. I have given a statistics, I'll give it to you. So he knows only 150. The remaining 50, he eliminates eliminates uh, 3 chances or 2 chances. Then he goes for. So probability, he secures some 30 marks. Then out of 2 known answers, he eliminates a particular thing and secures 25 marks and the remaining 250. So out of, I don't know whether I communicate it effectively or not. What I'm trying to say, an intelligent student, even though he knows exactly at the outset only 150 right questions, he will come across, he may secure more than 267 marks because the logic says. The point is, if there is no negative mark, if you answer all the questions A, B, C, D, any one of the words, if you just fill up A, B, C, D, your score will be 125. So 125 marks is not your marks. It's a minimum on the basis of probability. This is what's called probability. But a student, he knows one answer is not the right answer. He eliminates one. Then the probability is one is eliminated, 0.67 is the probability. If the student eliminates 2 answers, the probability is 0.5. There are occasions, even without knowing any answer, you can come to a particular conclusion. So this is not the right answer. This is not the right answer. This is not the right answer. The fourth answer, either I don't know whether it's right or not. It ought to be right. That way. What I'm trying to say, intelligence refers to this the difference between knowledge and intelligence. Knowledge may be depending upon hard work, but intelligence means ability of using technique, ability of using methods, ability of using tools to achieve the target. Therefore, the intelligent person is that person who is capable of using his knack, smartness, and secures. Therefore, in examination, and that too particularly what we call this competitive objective examination, intelligent students easily clear it. I will tell you another clue. If you take a subject, if you know 50 concepts thoroughly, whether you read a text or not, you will clear the subject. It's my experience in the 40 years of teaching profession. So, intelligence. Let me take William James' definition. Intelligence is that ability to adopt different techniques, or strategy, or method to achieve a distinct goal. So that way you can achieve it. So this one. So operationalization is an intelligent method, intelligent tool, intelligent technique, intelligent strategy to achieve the target of converting this hyper concept into a hypothesis. Therefore, in this part, in this heading, how to operationalization, I explain elaborately. It is there are a few repetitions. I think it is even though it is repetition, it's not a problem. You can follow that one. Yeah. So operationalization of concept is defined to mean converting an abstract concept or an idea into a measurable variable that can be observed and measured. So operationalization, it is related to measurability of the variable. Observed variability must be measured. Then operationalization facilitates the researcher to convert a concept into a variable and observe and measure such conceived variables for the purpose of research. Once again, it is the measurability. Operationalization is the process by which a researcher can conduct quantitative research in qualitative field and spell out precisely how a variable can be measured. Please move on to the next one. Yeah, operationalization refers to the process of developing. It's a very important point. Indicators. You have to develop indicators. Index is this singular, indices is the plural. So indicators can be developed in order to measure it. So in days to come, in a technical analysis of variables, we will take it, or in the point of data analyzing techniques, we will explain it. An operational definition of such a concept, which is converted into variable, should be objective, clear, and complete. When we come across systematic and scientific research, we have explained it objectivity. Here we are giving objectivity is possible only if there is a conceptual clarity, and the concept which is conceptually clear must be complete. Operationalization is an important step in research to ensure consistency, precision, clarity in measuring the variables. So operationalization requires all these things. Yes, please move on to the next one. Without transparency and specific operational definition, researchers may measure irrelevant concepts. On the other day, one of my researcher, one of the student, she raised this question. Sir, I want to study the extra celestial. If you go to the concept extra celestial without defining it, is it possible to understand it? You must say extra celestial means what? Irrelevant concept shall not be. Suppose if you want to measure, I want to measure my the goodness of Atma. It is not measurable. It's an irrelevant concept. I want to measure the goodness of heaven. It's an irrelevant concept. It cannot be measured. So concepts which are measurable, concepts which are clear alone can be taken. otherwise. Suppose if you say sweetness, so, oh, this is sweetness, subjectivity. Subjectivity cannot be. But in research, we are trying to convert the subjectivity into objectivity. That is the aim of operationalization. It is possible. You can study. You can study in a technical manner. So operationalization reduces the subjectivity and increase the reliability of the study. The operationalization is important in research because it allows researchers to test their hypothesis and make objective observations about the phenomenon they are studying. So phenomena, whatever you study, you have to take it into an objective manner. Please move on to the next one. So now we are going to necessity of hypothesis empirical research. There are 8 points I have illustrated. I have illustrated in the previous discussion, but for deliberate reasons, I have ignored it. I once again given this one in this lecture, necessity of hypothesis empirical research in law. There are 8 points. Hypothesis helps to formulate a specific and testable research problem. Hypothesis helps to design an appropriate method to collect and analyze data. Hypothesis helps in making an observation and a possible experimentation, if any. So hypothesis is the starting point for an investigation. These are the 4 points in this one. It's very simple. We have been dealing with all along this one. Please move on to the next one. Yeah, hypothesis helps to verify the observation. It helps in directing the inquiries into the right direction. It helps to communicate your expectations and assumptions to the readers. It is hypothesis based or reducible and can be tested by subsequent research. So these are the necessity, these are the factors that requires the relevance of hypothesis. But my dear students, before winding up my part, I would like to give the relevance of quantity or relevance of number in research and teaching. 3 experiences I would like to share. The first experience, when I was taking classes for the IA students, I used to give this one. In constitutional law, you might have come across Article 262. So 262, it is related to interstate river water disputes. When I give this number 262, the numbers it's very clear in the mind. I said on both sides, 2 or more states, 2 on the one side, 2 on the other side, 2 states involved. In between, number 6, Aru. If river comes in between 2 states, it is interstate river water disputes. From that day onwards, no student failed to recollect. What is the article for 262? Or what is the interstate river water disputes article? 262. That is the point of numerals. That's the point of thing. Similarly, while I was taking classes in the law students in Madras Law College, then it was Madras Law College, subsequently it was renamed. It was a very popular period. Students, now I crossed 65, so some 25, 30 years back, students appreciated that much. So the period, social time frame. Article 143. Article 143, it is related to advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. The advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court may be sought by the president to give its advice. Whether it is taken into account or not, the advice given by the Supreme Court sought by the president under Article 143 need not be bound, need not be followed. I explained. I used to give an illustration 143, I love you. So students, no student is following. Loving is dangerous enduring. When you are in college days, if you love, your career will be affected, all these things. So don't bother. But no student is listening. They are going for, sir, 143, sir. I said 143, sir. I love you, sir. See, this way, the 143, it has several meaning, but when it comes in number, it is. Similarly, another analogy, the concept when it is, I used to say, language. Language communicates things in through concepts. When the concepts are couched in rhythm, in an order, in a poem, song, that has a lot of wonders. Students might have come across the Pinnell's rule. I had an opportunity to explain the Pinnell's rule to my law students in contract. Contract without consideration is void, exception India. So there's an exception if it is a close relationship, all these things, it is exempted. But English contract without consideration is void. India, there are exceptions. In Pinnell's rule, they are saying consideration, contract without consideration is void, no doubt. But the consideration, whether it is adequate or not, the law keeps silence. The law is maintaining absolute silence about adequacy. And in the Pinnell's rule, it's pointed out if it is given before the due date on the basis of the demand of the person, then it is a good consideration. Even though it is a lower consideration, lesser consideration is good. And if it is on the day of a performance of the contract, then it must be exactly the same quantum. I try to convey so many things the students could not follow. That time there was a very popular movie, cinema song. I said immediately the students, yes sir, I understand sir. What is that? பஞ்சு மிட்டாய் 5 ரூபா, நீ பாதி தின்னு கொடுத்தா லட்ச ரூபா, குண்டு மல்லி 2 ரூபா, உன் கொண்டையில இருந்தா கோடி ரூபா. This is Pinnell's rule. When it is money, the exact quantum of money gives the satisfaction. When it is an object, anything can be a good consideration for any other thing. So when the concept is conceived and if it is measurable, it becomes a variable. So language is that communicates everything through concepts. But the concepts, when it's measurable, it is very, very vital. I would like to conclude this session by saying one point. Till 2500 years, Buddha's period or Mahavira's period or Socrates' period, the world was, human beings were under search. They were finding like animals. After Buddha, Mahavira, who are philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, they are philosophy, deductive and inductive logic, concepts emerged. From search, we entered into research. From 19th century onwards, we entered into the technological field, science and technology. So scientific research we come across. So from scientific research, the research becomes a scientific research and it becomes a systematic research. So now we are in the 21st century. We are in the artificial intelligence era. From observation, evolution develops into deductive logic. From induction to deductive logic. From inductive to deductive logic, we enter into science hypothesis. A particular portion, observation, we go back from observation to deduction. Now we are going into numbers, digital, binary. Everything is binary. Binary means 0, 1. The computer knows only the 0, 1 concept. So binary. In an artificial intelligence, it is numer, it is NEL, it is a number that is going a lot of things. Therefore, my dear students, you may be a knowledgeable person. You may have a wide knowledge, but the technique, the tool of converting a concept into a variable by operationalization, by measurement and putting into test, thereby if you come to numbers, then only it can be an objective, scientific, reliable and predictable research. Therefore, let me conclude by saying propositions can be converted into hypotheses. Hypothesis can be measured. Measurements can be useful for prediction. Without prediction, no research is useful. Therefore, we are going to exact prediction. The point is, what is the difference between 60% and 60.5%? If you put in number, then only you can say 60.5% is better than 60%. So we are putting our index finger on the point. That is very important. So research, it is precisely predicting the future and the future phenomenon. That's what's important. So legal research is going in this direction. If you want to proceed in that one, you can do a lot of things. With this, let me wind up my part, and we will allow the forum for deliberation. Thank you.
It's been a very great session, sir.
Yeah.
It's now time for interactive session.
Yeah.
So the participants can ask for the questions now.
I am free. You can raise questions. Here,
Yes.
things are taken over by my wife. They will be taking care of my grandson. I am free. You can ask any number of questions. Get it clarified.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I am Arun from Constitutional Law, first year
Yeah.
LLM.
Yeah.
So, two incidents were disturbing me when I was going through in the newspaper.
Yeah.
One 12-year boy, he jumped out of 14th floor while he was playing online game, and he died on the spot. Another one, a gentleman who has committed suicide because his son, while playing online game, he has lost some 14 or 7, let us say 7, I am not very much sure, 7 lakh rupees from his account has been swiped off. So these online games, which has no regulation, no logic, which is easily taking children's life. So I was thinking of doing research on that, whether legal enforcement or legitimacy on online game, whether it is possible or not. How I can frame the hypothesis, sir?
Yes, Mr. Arun, you are taking a applied research. So you are taking a particular problem, research problem, and you want to go to that one. So your purpose is, the problem is very clear. Whether online gambling is legal or not, that's not a question. The thing is, how many of the people, how many of the participants, how many of the members who are in the survey like it or do not like it? You can measure it. So it is what's called a descriptive research. If you want to find out a diagnostic research, the cost for that one, it's totally different. So if you want to be an empirical research, what type of empirical research you can go? You can take a population, you can take a population of parents of this particular age, and what is their knowledge, what is their involvement, what is their estimation about this particular law. So you're taking a particular law, you are taking the knowledge about the law, you are taking about the involvement of the persons about the law, you are taking about the efficacy of the law, you are taking about the efficacy of the implementation, all these things. On the basis, you can frame hypothesis, and you can say, as far as this particular law concerned, people, this percentage of people are liking this one, this much percentage do not like, this percentage of people, they say it is not to be allowed, this percentage of people say it should be banned, this type of people, you can go on generalize this one. So that type of research, it is an applied research. If you are any corporate body, if you are any particular concern, they may assign this research to you, and you may be in a position to find out what is the opinion of the people, what is the view of the people, what is the relevance of this one, whether it is to be allowed or not. This is one point. But you are asking this question, the implementation. in India, my understanding, we have lot of legislations. Implementation is the problem. If you ask implementation, simply people used to say it is the largest population in the world. We have crossed 1.4 by billion. In every 8%, 1% is an Indian. So in the 8 billion population, Indian population is 1.4 by 5 billion. So implementation is a problem, they may say. So you can ask the enforcement authorities, what is their difficulty? So it's a PhD work, you can take it. The relevance or the relevance of this particular legislation, the present context. You can go. But my dear student, don't presume too much things on any. Probably you will come to the conclusion that people are saying they voluntarily involve what the state can do. If he goes and jumps on a well, who is bothering? They may say you have to. So you have to codify, you have to give space, and you have to analyze everything. It's possible, you can do it. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A warm greeting, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, in this lecture, I have a major question. So, while you were talking about converting a proposition to a hypothesis, to me, in the previous lecture, as you said, hypothesis is just a kind of thing which we do for trial and error purpose. It's not absolute. It's just a test which we are giving to the research. So, like, but in a proposition, its characteristics is different. The proposition should be absolute, and the researcher should jot down the concepts which he's trying to address in the research. So, while we are converting an uncertain hypothesis to a certain proposition, like, isn't this like kind of problematic to the researcher to find the loophole, or that could be a problem for the researcher to conclude or to reach to a conclusion after completing his research?
So if you carefully watch my deliberation, I never used what you said. I said it's a tentative statement. I observe this is. Whether it is true or not, I am going to test it. I am again and again telling you, don't try to prove the hypothesis. Test the hypothesis. Whether there is a relation or there is no relation. If there is no relation, what you are going to lose? You are a researcher. You will get a PhD degree. You will get a degree. So I'm going to test it. Put the data, analyze the data with the tools, and come to a conclusion. And it is not a trial and error. I never use the word trial and error. It is a system.
I'm not like, sorry to cut you off. Like, it was my understanding of hypothesis. I'm not claiming that you said it. To me, the hypothesis could be a trial and error.
There are so many persons who are presuming so many things. So for presumption, it must be logic. It's not trial and error. It is testing the variables. I presume this is see, for instance, let me tell you. A student who works hard gets good mark. So hard work and getting good marks. There is a relationship. More number of hours, more marks it is. So this is to be tested. If it is a relation, you have to say it is related. If it is not related, you are going to say it's not related. For illustration, let me say, there are students who are struggling without properly understanding English. So if you are asking to write in English, every day he works for 10 hours. Finally, it finds it very difficult to pass the paper. But you have to control. That's what's called controlling of the variable. When I take number of hours, if it is a boys, I have to take only boys. If it is girls, I have to take only girls. If it's a first generation boy, I have to take first generation boys alone. If it is a first generation girls, I have to take first generation. If a person is from a lawyer's family, I have to take only from lawyer's family, sons and daughters. If it is a rich and aristocratic, I have to take. If they say English medium, I have to take only from that. So many variables have to be controlled. Then on the basis, I have to say a set of students who are of the same age, say 20, who of this income group, say above 50,000 rupees and below 1 lakh rupees per month family income, and who is educated in English medium, and who is not having any love affair or any depression and psychological problems, if they put 4 hours a day uniformly, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, and if their marks are varying, then only you can say there is a relationship between hard work and marks. Simply say, sir, I tested, it is not. No. Controlling of variables. When you take one variable, number of hours, all other variable. Sex is a very important variable that can influence. Family background is an important variable. There are family parents who are teaching their children in the home, at home about law more than what you learn. There are persons who are undergoing tuition. There are persons who are undergoing, they're improving. There are persons who are listening the classes very carefully. So many factors. You have to control all the factors, and only one factor, the number of hours alone is to be allowed. That is the experimental factor. That's what's called maximinicon. Maximization of the experimental variable, minimization of the error, minimization of the error variables, and controlling the extraneous variable, all these things. So it's not a simple thing. In the research and design, you will operationally define all these things. I don't like to introduce all these things. If I introduce today itself, you will be very much worrying. Oh, so much things. It is gradual, step by step. As I said, this N.S. Krishnan and Madaram Chapati, how to make chapati. That's the thing. Okay. So if you do it systematically, it is possible. Right?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, good.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I'm Monica Kesavan from Environmental Law and Legal Order First Year Department.
Yeah, good.
So my question to you, sir, as budding researchers, we have the tendency to presume that our hypothesis is correct, and subconsciously we reflect that throughout our research. So even if it is correct or not, so how to overcome this psychological perception, sir?
Yeah, good. Monica, you have raised a very pertinent question. Subconsciously, see, hypothesis, there are 3 sources of the hypothesis. I did not introduce it. I don't like to introduce it. Hypothesis comes on the basis of observation. At times, hypothesis comes on the basis of intuition. So intuition is that. Observation is that. Logical deduction is that. Analogy is that. You can have a hypothesis. Once you frame the hypothesis, once you have 2 variables, independent and dependent variable, you finish your subjectivity. You selected a concept, you framed 2 variables. Once the variables are fixed and the variables are operationally defined, you designed the data collection technique, you designed the data analyzing technique, then you should not use your intuition. You should not impose your subjectivity. You are a good-looking girl. If you say all good-looking girls are intelligent, is it right? No. Your idea shall not be imposed on the data. The data are allowed to be spoken. You must allow the data to speak. You should not speak. So, intuition, observation are useful in forming hypotheses. Once hypothesis topic, hypotheses are formed, data are to be collected objectively. Measurement of the data, it's very important. So, everywhere it is, so subjectivity is there. When you are codifying a particular data, whether it comes in 1, 2, or 3, 1 refers to bad, 2 refers to neither good or good, and 3 refers to very good. Or let me say, so 1 is minus 1 is bad, 0 is neither good or not good or not bad, and 1 is good. When you categorize this one, You are there, you are putting. If you put the +1 into -1, that's all. Research is doomed. Everywhere objectivity is there. You have to cull out your subjectivity, you cull out your feeling, and you must be a systematic researcher without anything, right? Yeah. So you can proceed
Thank
with
you.
the intuition, you proceed with the observation. Once a hypothesis is framed, once you begin to collect data, your subjective, your personal opinion shall be marginalized, shall be assigned. Good?
It should be set aside.
Yeah, Monica.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
This is Jayadurga from first year Human Rights Department.
What's your
sir.
name, ma? What's your name?
Jayadurga, sir.
Durga, yeah.
Yes, sir. So today I have a question relating to null hypothesis.
Yeah.
Sir, how can a researcher include an unexpected findings or a null result if it seems to be inconsistent with his originally formulated hypothesis, sir? What are the procedure for including unexpected findings and null results?
Yeah. See, when a researcher starts, he starts with the hypothesis. This hypothesis is called testable hypothesis or experimental hypothesis, right? Parallelly, whether you say or not, parallelly, there is an opposite hypothesis called null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis. If research hypothesis is tested and it is false, automatically you are going to the alternate hypothesis. There is no relationship between hard work and marks. If you say there is a relationship between hard work, number of hours work for reading and number of marks secured, if you come to the conclusion there is no relation between number of hours work for reading and marks secured, you are going to say there is no relation between number of hours work and the number of marks secured by the student. Alternate hypothesis there. So you are going to accept the alternate hypothesis, which is what's called null hypothesis, no relationship. So research starts with an experimental hypothesis or testable hypothesis. Parallelly, whether you state it or not, there is an opposite hypothesis called alternate hypothesis or null hypothesis. Good, I think I have answered your question.
Thank you, sir, for your...
Good. Yes, thank you.
Sir, myself Deepa from Business Law Department, sir.
Yes, Deepa, tell me.
Sir, mere use of the negative words in the proposition will make them a universal negative or a particular negative, or else the essence of the proposition need to be...
Essence.
For example, no...
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, if for an illustration, if no person can be punished, if no offense is committed by him, then the proposition can be considered as a positive or a negative, sir.
So no person, no punishment, no offense. Double negative. With the double
Yes,
negative, no hypothesis can be found, no proposition can be found. There cannot be two negatives. It's called fallacy of double negative. There is no offense. It is a proposition, no punishment.
Okay, sir.
Right?
So that the essence is to be considered.
No, when it is not an offense, so where is the question of punishment?
Okay, sir.
What is offense? What is punishment? When there is no offense, there is no punishment. It is simple as the sun is strong. Sun is the center of the solar system. In fallacy, there are on the basis of some particular, two particulars, you cannot have a conclusion. On the basis of double negative, you cannot have a conclusion. If there is one negative, the conclusion must be negative. It's a fallacy. In logic, it is what's called a fallacy. So, if time permits, at the fag end, we can have a logic and fallacy class.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other thing?
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Myself is Sindhu Priya.
Yeah.
I'm a second year LLM student, sir, from Criminal Law Department.
Oh, good.
And my question is, in one of the past session, you have mentioned that doing research is creating an impact in the personal life of one person. So could you give me any example or any incident which creates an impact in your personal life due to doing the research?
Yeah. So very interesting. See, I said I hail from a small family, just 150 village houses in the family. My feeling is I joined PhD in 1980. I have undergone a very rigorous research methodology course. My professor got his PhD from US, North Illinois University, came and trained me. For research methodology, I spent nearly 3 years. I have undergone the course of statistics, computer programming, everything. All these enabled me what is to be achieved. When I take a particular measure, it is logical, it is systematic, it is predictable. If I do this one for so many years, I can achieve it. So I refined what is relevant, what is not relevant, what is good to me, what is good to the society, what is not good to me, whether it is good to the society or not. All these things I clearly caused, measured, I did it. From that family, from that village, I became, my background, I entered into law college without law degree. From that day onwards, 1985, I joined BL, finished ML, finished PhD in law also. So with 3 master's degree, 2 PhDs, I reached the stage of VC. I give all this credit to the research methodology. Research methodology for that purpose, I mean not passing only, understand, imbibe, and assimilate. You must. Let me tell you 2 important things. I was a full-time researcher with the UGC fellowship. I used to go to bed by 12 o'clock in the night when I was a researcher. I used to have a notebook and a pencil very close to my pillow. At any point of time, any solution will come to the critical problem of research. That way. So you have to live with the research for at least for 3 to 5 years. Then your life will be. So money is not the problem. If you are a systematic researcher, if you are prudent enough, money will come after you if you want. You can do it. So my point is, research helps you in removing all those irrelevant things in you and enhances the quality in you, good quality in you, and streamlines this way. You can be able to predict today, Priya, your Priya, isn't it?
Sindhu Priya.
Sindhu Priya. Today, Sindhu Priya, you have a picture. Today, Sindhu Priya is like that. After 5 years, what Sindhu Priya will be. After 10 years, what will be. After 15 years, what will be. 20 years, what will be. After 25 years, what will be. You have a goal. You fix the goal and go towards the goal. Research methodology, it will facilitate you how to achieve the goal because it's a procedure. It's a logical procedure. And ultimately, if you are not achieving, nothing will happen, wrong will happen. Because what is in you, what molds you, what is the greatest thing in you is the approach mind, that mental mind setup that will give you peace. Now, in spite of all these problems, I am the happiest person. My mindset, yes, I have achieved. I am doing whatever I want to do. I am happy. This happiness will not be taken away. You are a human being, we are human beings. Happiness, your personal happiness, it's very important. So research will give you that happiness.
Yes.
So I think
Thank
I
you
have
so much,
spoken
sir.
about me. Thank you. Good.
No, sir. That's what I want, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was an interactive session. Now
Yeah.
I call upon Ms. Neha to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good.
Greetings, everyone. It is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks for today's insightful and enriching 7th lecture in the special lecture series or legal research methodology. First and foremost, I extend our heartfelt thanks to our esteemed resource person, Professor Dr. P. Vanagamudi sir, former Vice Chancellor, Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University. Your expertise and detailed presentation on hypothesis and presentations and research in law have deepened our understanding and will guide us in our academic pursuits and professional careers, sir. We are truly grateful for your time and knowledge. Thank you, sir. I would also like to express a sincere gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Colonel Professor Dr. N.S. Santosh Kumar sir, for his unwavering support and encouragement in organizing this lecture series, fostering an environment that promotes academic excellence. Our thanks are also due to our esteemed Registrar, Professor Dr. Gauri Ramesh ma'am, for ensuring the smooth administration that has made this event possible. A special word of thanks to our Dean, Professor Dr. Balaji sir, for encouraging us to engage in opportunities that enhance our learning experience, and also our heartfelt gratitude to our PG Director, Professor Dr. Kumudaratna ma'am, for guiding and motivating us throughout this series. We are deeply grateful to the faculty coordinator of this event, Dr. Anbarasi ma'am, for her tireless efforts in making this series a great success. A special thanks to the student coordinators also. I also take this opportunity to thank the faculties present both offline and online for their participation and valuable inputs. A warm thank you to all the students present today. Your active participation and enthusiasm have made this lecture more engaging and meaningful. Last, certainly not least, goes to the staff for their invaluable support in ensuring that all the technical arrangements were flawless. Once again, thank you all for your presence, participation, and contributions for making today's lecture a success. Let us look forward to more such enriching sessions in the future. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.